My name is Nikki Mullowney. I am a recovered drug addict and alcoholic. Last time we talked about the resentment inventory a little bit, broke it down a little bit further. I didn't go into like big specifics on like examples of what things could look like, but kind of just gave my 2 cents more so on being trauma informed and when we're looking at trauma and childhood stuff, what can go into that fourth column to help us to be more effective and not putting a moral judgment on the words mistakes, selfish, self-seeking, dishonest, and frightened. Today, what I want to talk about is the fear inventory. So the fear inventory, the way that I've seen it done is 2 different ways. First way is the very simplistic, what is my fear and why do I have it, right? And that just kind of, it goes into like 4 different ways of like, what is it, why, helping you to kind of get down to the root of what the fear is. That was the first way that I did it, which I think was a little helpful, but what I have found way more helpful over the years and the way that I now teach it and the way that I now do it is a 4-column fear inventory that includes the following questions. What is the fear? Why do I have it? How has self-reliance failed me? And what would God have me be instead? This is not technically laid out in these questions and in columns in the big book. It's kind of more of an implied inventory, to be fair, because it goes into asking, what's the fear? Why do I have it? And then as you go down the page and in a whole different paragraph, it says, that self-reliance failed us. Self-reliance was good as far as it went, but it didn't go as far as we needed. I'm paraphrasing here. And then we resolutely sought, what would God have us be instead? Again, I'm paraphrasing, but you get the gist. One of the things that has been impressed upon me is fear is future, resentment is past. So a lot of times when I am doing the fear inventory, I instinctively want to go back. I want to say, well, this is why I have the fear, because all these things happened. Which I'm not saying is wrong or right, but I'm just giving you my 2 cents on what I have found to be the most effective for myself. Take it or leave it, right? So if I'm putting my fear, let's just do one that most of us have and most of us resonate with the most, right? In my experience. So I have fear. Why do I have it? Fear is being alone, right? So why do I have that fear? Instinctively, I want to say everyone I've ever been with has cheated on me because my parents weren't reliable to be around, because I moved 3,000 miles away from everything I knew when I was 19 and felt incredibly lonely because no one ever stays, because everyone always leaves me, right? Because everyone always breaks up with me, whatever. However, I can't be afraid of those things, right? So my fear of being alone can't necessarily be based on the past, technically, because those things already happened. They are a fact, right? So the question is, what am I afraid is going to happen as the result of meeting this fear, right? So I'm afraid of being alone. So for me, in the second column, I'm going to look for why. And when I'm looking for why, I'm going to say, because I'm afraid of that feeling of loneliness being a fact for the rest of my life. I'm afraid of enduring that loneliness forever. I'm afraid of feeling rejected in the future. I'm afraid that I'm not lovable and everyone that I love will leave or die. I am afraid that I will never be good enough. I'm afraid that I won't have someone to grow old with. Right, so these are more of like the root fears of what I'm afraid is going to transpire if I continue to be alone. I think that that's pretty clear cut and pretty simple. Again, our brains typically want to go to the past. It's like, right, but I'm afraid of that because of this. Right, absolutely. And here's the deal. Again, what I was talking about yesterday, in therapy, I'm going to connect a lot of dots, right? But my mom leaving me when I was 5, not my experience, but you know what I'm saying, is a resentment. It's not a fear. It already happened. I'm not a child anymore. It can't happen again, right? I mean, it could, technically, let's say, for argument's sake, I'm afraid of being alone because my mom left when I was 5. No, right? I'm not 5 anymore. She's already gone. She already left. She can't leave again. But then you say to me, well, Nick, she got sober. She came back, and I'm afraid that she's going to leave again. There you go. I'm afraid that my mom's going to leave me again. I'm afraid that I'm not going to have a normal family unit. I'm afraid. Fill in the blank. Makes sense, right? So again, resentment, fear. This way is future. This way is fear, right? This way is future, and this way is the past, right? So can we all get on board with that signage? My dog just left. I scared him. Anyway, so with that being said, right? So we're clear on the second column. So the third one, a lot of times we also get tripped up on. What does it mean when I say, how has self-reliance failed me? The way that I simplify that for my brain is, what have I done to try to avoid meeting that fear, but instead I have exacerbated that fear, right? For example, right? So I'm relying on me. I'm relying on my selfishness, not on moral judgment, on my coping skills, on my survival skills, on my dishonesty, on all these little things that I use to try and manipulate situations to go my way, right? And I'm trying to use that to not face these fears, and yet I'm facing them constantly. And they're just getting worse. The fears are getting bigger. They're getting louder. Even if I'm repressing them, even if I'm trying to shove them down and pretend that they're not there, they're just getting fucking worse, man. How self-reliance has failed me in regards to my fear of being alone is I get into surface level relationships with people that I know I'm not compatible with, that I know it can't work, right? And I try really, really hard to convince them to love me, to convince me that this is going to work and that this is the right thing and that it's meant to be and the universe has conspired in our favor. And then they cheat or I cheat and they leave or I leave and I say, see? I'll always be alone. And that's how self-reliance fails me. I attach to and chase after people who have made it clear that they don't want to be around me on a regular basis. And I try to convince them otherwise. And when it doesn't work, I say, see, I'll always be alone. I see people who actually care for me, right, who actually want the best for me, and I hibernate and I push them away and I cause chaos to make them leave, right? Because intimacy is whatever the case may be. And then so finally I succeed and I push them away and I say, see, I'll always be alone. I push boundaries. I take advantage of the people who actually care about me. I take advantage of the people that I love and love me back. And I lie to them. And I hurt them. So they set a boundary. And because I'm unwilling to do anything about it and change my behavior, they distance themselves from me. And I say, see, I'll always be alone. I love bomb. I gaslight. I minimize. We can talk all day about the trauma and the abuse that we've endured, and that stuff is valid, so valid. And if I'm going to find actual peace and freedom, I have to look at and own up to the ways that I've done that also. Because I have. And again, this isn't I'm so bad. No, I was sick, dude. I most of the time I didn't do it on purpose. Sometimes I did. Sometimes I was just mean. And what I can say about myself, that I know for a fact, is even though in those moments, I still really thought I was doing the right thing. For the most part. But it didn't work. Self-reliance failed me. Right? So I'm going to put down on paper how it failed me and how I can show up differently so I can have a new experience in life, right? Because the spiritual awakening is just the change of my reaction towards life. Right? The way that I see the world, the way that I experience you, the universe, and everything in between, right? The way that I experience myself. I'm trying to change my relationship to my mind and to everything else, right? So I gotta get clear about that. So that's the third column. Now we're at the fourth column, right? So the fourth column is, what would God have me be instead? That's where a lot of us get really tripped up. And it's so funny, especially watching so many different people walk through these steps, right? Because you got the ones who are self-loathing, that will just go on and on and on about all the ways that they messed up, right? And they get really clear on it, which I think is a leg up and it is helpful, but sometimes it's not in a very helpful way. It's in a very self-serving, self-deprecating, self-loathing way, which that's not what we're trying to do here. I'm trying to get clear on my actions, right? And this is, to bring in some clinical terms, the difference between shame and guilt. I am not bad. My actions weren't great. I want to change my behaviors, but I at my core am not bad. I know that because I have a lot of remorse. Not a sociopath. So we can do something about it, right? And then we get to, like, especially when we have all this shame and guilt and all this different stuff, we get to this part where it's, what would God have me be instead? And we just hit a wall. It's like, I don't know. I've had people get really defensive with me, and they're like, Nick, if I knew, then I would just do that, right? But the truth is that's just not true, because I did know a lot of ways that I could have shown up differently and better, more beneficial, right? I just didn't think it was possible. I just couldn't do it. The needed power wasn't there. So the other thing that I want to say about the verbiage of this column and the title of this column, right, is, what would God have me be instead? If you're in a place where the word God just makes you bristle with antagonism, cool, man. Right on. No one cares. I know that a lot of us hear God and hear higher power and hear all these things, spiritual principles of the program, and we immediately are like, see, they're trying to convert me. It's a cult. They want me to say that Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior, right? And I totally understand why that's so many people's belief. That was mine too. I was terrified walking into this. I was like, I'm not doing this. Stark raving atheist, right? I was like, I'm not, absolutely not. Thank God I had a group of women around me who helped me see things differently, right? Because the truth is if you are a Christian, then these 12 steps will help you to gain a much deeper relationship with your Christian God, right? And help you to do that. Same thing if you're Jewish, same thing if you're Muslim. Like, literally, it doesn't matter, right? Whatever religion you are, it'll strengthen your relationship to your belief in God. I've watched that over and over. If you're not religious and you don't want to be religious, welcome to my channel, right? And it literally doesn't matter. No one cares more than you do. No one is judging you more than you are. I am 6 years sober now, and I still have yet to choose a religion, nor do I have any plans to. I still call it God as I don't understand him, right? My truth is like, my conception of God is not a man, is not a being, is not like a human looking. It's not biblical. I say him and I say God because, like, most of y'all understand what I'm talking about and we're on the same page. But my conception, your conception, her conception, his conception are probably all wildly different, right? I mean, you know what I'm saying? So when I look at that fourth column that says, what would God have me be instead, a more simplified way is, what would it look like to live by spiritual principles, right? Because again, I'm not religious, but I can get down with spiritual principles. Universal truth, dharma, right? I truly believe that there's some energy inside of us, right? This is just my conception, but it also is very fluid, if you will, kind of like my gender, I guess. But this like instinct, this thing inside of us that wants to be good, right? Like, I want to be kind. I want to be considerate. I want to be compassionate. I want to be loving. I want to be all these. I want to be honest, right? And even when, like, I'm not showing up in any of those at all, I know that that's how I want to be, because if you call me a fucking liar, I'm going to be pissed. if you accuse me of being the opposite of these things, I'm mad, right? Because that part that wants so bad to show up in those ways is so defensive and so angry that I'm unable to, right? So when I say spiritual principles, that's what I mean. Just like lining up with with kindness and love. I thought I did. I thought I did that for a long time, and I didn't, right? My kindness was not kind. I would fight people for other people. I would bully people for other people. It was self-serving. It wasn't kind. Unconditional compassion and empathy, right? So I'm trying to get to that stage, right? So in my fourth column of the fear inventory, that's what I'm looking for. What would it look like to show up in a spiritually principled way? What would God have me be instead? So if my fear is I'll always be alone, and why that is because, I'm afraid of loneliness, that I'll never have someone to grow old with, that I'll be rejected, that I'm not good enough, yada yada. And then how self-reliance has failed me. Again, surface level relationships, blah blah blah. I leave, they leave, blah blah blah. Right? You get the gist. What would God have me be instead? What does it look like to live up to spiritual principles? This is it is a harder one, right? But I had to come to terms with not trying to manipulate people into loving me, not trying to control people into seeing things the way that I see them, allowing myself the time and grace to heal and look inward and do the internal work so that I can show up for people in a way that isn't self-serving, right? That isn't controlling, that isn't manipulative, even when I'm not trying to be. Because no one gives a shit about your intentions, right? No one gave a shit about my intentions. When I was mean, when I was controlling, when I was manipulative, that's what I was. It doesn't matter if my intention was to protect you. People don't need to be protected, right? Not in the way I was. God would have me allow people to love me, not push people away, and do the work necessary so that I no longer do those things, right? God would have me to set boundaries, right? And then live up to them. God would have me not self-sacrifice and do all of these things to show people how much I love them and how much they need me just to hold it against them. That's not spiritual principles. That's not how I want to show up anymore. I wasn't super aware that I did show up that way. And that's why inventory is so important. Whether you're a little dope fiend and drunk or not, honestly, you can be a complete normie. You've never had an addiction in your life. You've never had an issue in your life. You do this work, something's going to happen, right? Because awareness is key, at least in my experience. Like I've said before, take it or leave it. I'm just one fucking human, right? But I was one fucking human that was absolutely lost and miserable for as long as I can remember. And yeah, I go through some really hard stuff. I walk through some darkness, but my relationship to the darkness is different. I've been sad, I've grieved, I have gone through really, really hard things. And I've said that I'm miserable, but the truth is I know misery and this ain't it. Right? I have not been miserable in recovery. Sad, angry, rage. Not miserable. Not hopeless. Not suicidal. Right? All the work is internal. Thank God. Because I spent a long time believing that the problem was all y'all. All you people. You're why I'm miserable. It's because she didn't love me enough. It's because she rejected me. It's because he was abusive. It's because y'all. And if I keep believing that other people are why I feel the way that I feel, I'll never be okay because I can't change other people. I can change my relationship to them, but it's really hard to do that until I change the relationship to myself. Right? My misery, my suffering is internal, so my work has to be internal. And then I get to sort out what to do with y'all, right? Sometimes y'all never did anything wrong. It was just my perception, because you didn't give me what I thought I needed. Thank God for that. So anyway, that's my take on fear inventory. Again, if you want to talk more about this or want to hear more about the step work or the big book or anything recovery related, or if you need some beginners meditations, you can subscribe, and comment and all that fun stuff. Share this out to your friends, share this out to your sponsees, and I'll keep doing it if it's beneficial. Anyway, Nikki Mullowney, recovered drug addict, and remember, we do recover.